Now it's time for the concluding session of the IFX Expo, a keynote speech by Shai Zakheim, the CEO of USGFX. Shai will talk about Asia's most sought after regulation, ASIC. Please, Shai.
Hello, everybody. I'm just waiting for the presentation to be on, and we'll start. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Our topic for today will be operating under an AFSL in Asia Pacific region. I'm Shai Zakheim, the CEO of USGFX. Our agenda will be discussing what is ASIC, why it's highly regarded around the world, specifically, of course, in Asia Pacific, the regulatory framework under ASIC, the Australian FX market in relation to new client money rules, which are coming in coming April 2018, and how partners of AFSL holders can flourish in the prized Asia Pacific markets. So first, about USG. USG is an Australian forex broker. We hold an AFSL under ASIC regulated, headquarters in Sydney, Australia. Strong presence in Asia Pacific markets and expansion into European, South Africa, and Middle Eastern markets in 2018. So, first question is, why the Australian market? As probably you know already, the Australian market and the Australian AFSL is regarded as the very best jurisdiction for FX, CFD, and the OTC market. Companies wants to enter the Australian market because of some key notes that basically and factors that makes the market what it is and to be wanted. So of course we are talking about strong and stable economy, you know, the Australian economy, strong and stable government, professional business culture, excellent business ethics, you know, close to the Asian markets with a lot of trade agreements with important nations like Hong Kong, China, Singapore. Of course, an English-speaking, tech-savvy Western population, and a very comprehensive and secure regulator. Sorry? Okay. So ASIC, the Australian Securities and Investment Commission, the full name, is an independent body of the Australian government, which basically ASIC's role is to enforce and regulate the financial services market and to monitor all the AFSL holders that operate under the Australian market. The main job for ASIC is actually to provide protection to the investors and a safe environment for the investors and the traders, which in the end of the day makes, of course, also brokers' life easier. ASIC is set up under the administrator of the Australian Securities Investment Commission and carries out most of the work under the Corporation Act of the Australian government. ASIC vision is to allow market to fund economy and in turn economic growth, of course. In doing so, they contribute to the financial well-being of investors by few key factors. So, promoting investor and consumer trust and confidence by educating the investors to be responsible for their investment decisions and to make smart decisions where to invest their money. ensuring fair and transparent and efficient markets, okay, achieved by through the Commission role in the market, supervision and competition, and providing efficient and acceptable registration services, focused mainly on small businesses in Australia. So basically, how does ASIC monitor and regulate the forex brokers in Australia? ASIC is one of the world's most technology-focused regulators, and prefers to automate the solutions of reporting, like derivatives reporting, and that started 2 years ago, basically. And the monitoring of all brokers, of course, in Australia, including surveillance in real-time basis. So basically, how does ASIC do the actual monitoring? Is ongoing real-time surveillance and monitoring, powers to ensure fair trading and integrity in the financial markets, record keeping checks up to 7 years, requiring license holders to document and maintain the measures and policies. So basically, every small subject is under policies, including internal dispute resolution policies and etc. Investigate suspect breaches and requiring licenses to produce books and answer questions and examinations. Of course, also there's an obligation by forex brokers in Australia to report any kind of breach, by themselves, not to wait until ASIC comes to you. Strict auditing requirements by ASIC-appointed auditors. So not anyone can audit a financial services broker, only the authorized persons. Protection of mom and dad investors, which in my eyes, that's the main key factor for ASIC, to protect investors, which I personally believe that a strong regulator is, of course, good for business and for brokers as well, to provide safe environment for those investors. Mandatory requirements to present, display PDS and FSG, the product disclose, and all the financial services guides, and requirement of full transparency in operation and compliance. Of course, there are penalties for non-compliance, and including fines, bans, and even loss of a license, which happened a couple of times. And of course, ASIC is regulation is one of the most sought after and most respected licenses in the world, especially in the Asia Pacific region. To get a license from ASIC, to get an FSA license, it's a detailed and long process, which you need to appoint compliance structure, framework, appoint a responsible manager, which basically signs on the application. You need auditors, as I said, authorized auditors only. Professional indemnity insurance, which minimum cover of $2 million. Accountants, external dispute resolution services, like the Ombudsman. Bank accounts and trust accounts, segregated accounts, of course. And the human resource and technology to maintain the compliance and risk management. Obligation under the FSL the Australian Financial Services License is to deliver financial services honestly and fairly, to comply with all the license conditions, and of course the laws, financial requirements to be insolvent, solvency and have the right cash, NTA in place, have qualifications and experienced responsible managers, and process of managing conflicts of interest, guidance to training, monitoring, supervision, staff, and partners, which we will talk in the next 10 minutes again on that point. And of course, compliance and risk management manuals in place. And of course, it's not enough to have documentation. Also, it needs to be in work and monitored on real-time basis. And as I mentioned before, having minimum of $1.1 million of NTA as collateral monies. There are strict advertising guidance, restriction on marketing messages, strict guidance on sales calls, including what is not allowed to say and what is allowed to say, including presenting the risk factors to investors and future investors, of course. Technology, human resources, insurance arrangement, conduct and disclosure, and have measures in place to ensure compliance with the obligations. And the DTR, the Derivative Trade Repository, that, as I said before, started 2 years ago. Basically, it's an automated system that reports all position by brokers daily. After you get a license, of course, you have the ongoing compliance. It's not enough only to set up everything, okay? Once you set up, you need to continue with your ongoing compliance. They must comply, of course, with all the general obligations. With, from time to time, the AFS license can grant and continue on ongoing basis, which includes proofs and evidence that for all that, ongoing ASIC surveillance, annual auditing, which are reported, the financial year ends in Australia in 30th of June, and audits report must be submitted by end of October. Corporation Act, of course, mandatory reporting of compliance breaches. As I said before, the brokers are obligated to report any breach of compliance. Penalties for non-compliance, as we said. There's director obligations to oversee compliance, of course, and monthly account reporting, which now, by the way, we will discuss it in a few minutes as well, for some new requirements that are coming under that regime to be basically do daily reporting. So until now it was monthly management accounts reporting, but starting April 2018, the reports are daily. And of course, to have the risk management system and ongoing basis. So, as I said a minute ago, the changes that coming in the coming April basically are around strict approach of handling of client funds, okay? Which basically aiming to achieve a better and highly respected regulatory structure, which will give a rise to the reputation of the AFSL holders. So the new requirements, basically what they include, So new client record keeping, reconciliation and reporting requirements, as I said before. So the obligation was monthly, but now reconciliation needs to be done daily. Restrictions on relying on written directions from clients to use derivative retail client money. Meeting obligation in relation of margin, guaranteeing, securing, and hedging, of course. So brokers are not allowed to use client funds to hedge their position with prime brokers. And new reporting requirements, as I said, ASIC will need to be notified of any breach within 5 working days. Annual declaration from the director and external auditor that the licensee has complied with, of course, with all the rules and the reconciliation and reporting. And in the end, to ensure compliance policies and procedures to be in place. So those recent changes, of course, started we already long time discussions in the industry, which through new rules, ASIC aims to ensure, of course, a greater transparency by the brokers on markets. However, the new rules will obligate brokers to report the use of derivative retail client money and the use of those funds. Some industry experts from the other side of always there's two sides for any coin. So some industry experts express their worries, actually, their concern, in regards of the operation straight-through processing brokers, the STP as we know it. And basically, the concern is that brokers will hedge less now, which basically will lead of an increase of the risk level by brokers not hedging their trades to the banks, prime brokers, etc. So lately, as probably most of you know already, in the last couple of years, ASIC has significantly restricted number of new FSLs. I think like around 4 years ago. Why is this? So first of all, they view the margin effects OTC products as a high, risk, as of the high levels of leverage involved in trading. They have a concern with possible exploitation, especially by offshore entities, rogue operators that selling the wrong category of licenses to overseas companies, which happened as well. And of course, the GTL trading episode that basically end up by investors losing their money. So basically, there is an alternative path that it's become a, you can say, you could call it a trend in the industry, which AFSL orders appoint authorized representative to work under their license. So basically, the key point here is partnering with key brokers around FX business globally, and to join forces with people that operate in other jurisdictions to achieve better client base, basically. This path is basically beneficial for all parties involved, as for few key reasons, which I will mention in a sec. An FSN holder may appoint an authorized representative to provide financial services on their behalf, and it can be individuals, companies, or partnerships as well. So what are those advantages we mentioned? So first of all, an authorized representative can work under the umbrella of an AFSL holder and provide financial services in Australia. And of course, as we said, as the license is a very strong license in Asia Pacific area, it gives the same financial services and basically being able to operate in Australia and in Asia Pacific. So the AR will basically benefit from the AFSL holder infrastructure, including compliance procedures, marketing, training process, support systems. They can authorize others to provide financial services underneath him. And there's no need to have your own responsible manager. There's no need to have your own compliance officer. And there is no need mandatory of external audits of end of the year. No need for the PI insurance as well, which is all covered by the AFSL holder. And of course, closely monitored by the AFSL holder. And of course, the operation is basically all closely monitored by not only the AFSL holder, rather also, of course, ASIC. An authorized representative is not something that's just done by signing an agreement with a broker, a license holder. Rather, it's a formal registration on the ASIC portal, which investors can look and see those appointments. So, ARs must sign an agreement, of course, with the FSL holder, which we call an AR agreement. They must agree to due diligence checks as the initial step of the process. They must comply with the rules, laws, regulation, of course, of the FSL holder and, of course, ASIC. They need to be agreed to be monitored and supervised by the FSL holder and his compliance and their compliance officer, and must follow the compliance, of course, and trading guidelines set by the FSL holder. The ARs basically operate under the umbrella of the FSL holder, as we said, and are enjoying the benefits of the AFSL holder and without all the liabilities of the licensee. Of course, compliance liabilities do exist, but you know, not having the need to have your own PI insurance, responsible managers, etc., compliance officer, makes that cooperation a win-win situation for both sides. The ARs can also sub-authorize other agents to work underneath them and provide those services. Of course, those will be also heavily monitored by the FSL holder as well. So, to sum up, basically, due to high levels of respect for an FSL license, and the demand is very high, especially for brokers that want to operate in the Asian Pacific region. However, obtaining an AFSL and maintaining an AFSL is extremely difficult, and also there's no issuing of new licenses. Like there were a few in the last couple of years, but very few. And of course, AFSL holders, significant resources are needed to maintain the AFSL obligations, and an attractive alternative to become an AR, an authorized representative of an AFSL holder. That's basically give individual or companies the benefits to work in those markets, of course, fully regulated and monitored by the AFSL holder. So basically, as a final word, in my belief, by working together and collaborating with partners around the world, we can take the derivatives industry, the OTC industry, to the next level of success, client certification, growth, and corporate responsibility, which basically, at the end of the day, with a strong regulator and a strong license, it's not only protecting the investors, it's also helping brokers to conduct business, and grow their business in the Asia-Pacific area, which, the investors trust the ASIC regime. That is my part. If anyone have any question, I'll be happy to answer. Is there any questions? So, thank you very much for listening to me today after a very long 2 days, and Godspeed.